Holding my hand in the darkness, seeing ghosts down the hallway. There's a presence, bedroom shadows, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Ghostly apparition hovering over me, asking what it wants to know. I'm shaking now, it calls out my name, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. Presence, nightmare. So loud, so
So welcome to PRT, everybody, a Monday edition, which is not a normal thing for us, but we do random, Mondays. Every now and then we'll do a Monday. Just throw you a curveball, right? If that's okay. So we got LA Marzulli coming back on. Everybody was stoked about him coming on. First time he'll be back today. Here he is right here. Let me get him on. LA, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Josh. I've had a very difficult day. I got
my headphones in. One second. I always forget this. All right. There we go. Long hectic day, huh?
Yeah, I got slammed last night in the dream state.
Can't
Just,
hear him.
can you hear me okay? Josh, can you hear me?
No sound.
Really?
Yeah, I got no sound on my side.
Can
From
you hear me at
Billy.
all?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
he can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Check 1, 2, check. My mic's on. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I came to the studio so we could be more
Right. No, I get it.
professional, and now, now we got
Let
it
me,
work.
let me sign out and I'll try the link again.
No, we got it. We're good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We just had
okay, good.
Yeah. It's something on our end right there. Everybody else can hear you. We're good. So long, hectic day, like I said, right? But you're a very busy guy. And when you were on last time, you were telling us a little bit about some of the things you've been doing and why you were so busy. So, like I said, an hour. So now we're here hour 2, and there's so much stuff. What do we talk about? What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I mean, there's 30 films and 13 books available. Number 14. Actually, I signed the contract last week. I think I told you this. I signed the contract with Charisma Media for book number 14, and they're excited about it, and we all are. We'll see what happens with that. That's on the whole UFO disclosure thing. Over the weekend, Luis Elizondo made a statement basically stating that he's being threatened by the underbelly of whoever, whatever. He's being threatened. David Grush has been threatened. These guys are UFO whistleblowers, and there's no protection. And today I had an email from someone. Basically, I'm not going to get into it, but it was very, people say things and do things, and people have written hit pieces on me before, including so-called Christian brothers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, as you know, part of it goes, why am I even doing this at this point? What's my reward? I mean, it's not like I'm making millions of dollars here. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not. A lot of things that keep us going are the donations that people give us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we were selling like 10,000 copies of the films, life would be different, but we're not. We're not selling that. And it really makes you wonder. I mean, what does it take to bring things to market and to get people interested in the fact that, one, there's a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's all around us. Number 2, the UFO phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. And this is the coming great deception. This, in my opinion, this is the coming great deception. When they show up, and they will show up, it will change everything. It changes, and it does it on an instant. In an instant. Is this the strong delusion that we hear about in our Bibles that Jesus warns us, or Paul warns us about in 2 Thessalonians? In my opinion, the answer to that is yes. That's my opinion. That's conjecture. But it's based on decades and decades of research.
And what you said about, pretty much everything you said in a nutshell is you're a Christian. I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
You're going to suffer. Jesus says he hated me first. That's been the people that watch every move you make. They watch every move I make, and they look for any little flaw so they can pick it apart and they can say, there you are, because they're Pharisees. That's what they do. That's their job, to accuse. And it's like Jesus says, you got to take heart. They hated me first. That's what he says. So interesting what you said. Now I had a couple questions for you over the weekend,
Right.
While I was out living my life of sin and whatever. So I had a question for you, and it was the nature of reality. I've talked quite a bit about that, and I've talked to people who have had near-death experiences. And this was a question I wanted for someone like you with your caliber of mind. People have seen torment. They have seen heaven. They've seen hell, or versions of it. And I tell people all the time that they don't understand the nature of reality, what we're living in. And I do believe that they have tampered with things. I think that's where the Mandela effect comes in. And I believe that these people who have this ability, they know the cheat codes, but they can't cheat God. But they really believe they can. They think that they can circumvent their own, what's coming, their own judgment. And it's crazy because they think that if they put it in your face, and it's right there, then it's like, oh, it's okay, because the legalities, they can circumvent that. And I tell my listeners that there are spiritual legalities, and
Absolutely.
these people are trying to circumvent this with this faux world that we live in. And Jesus says that the god of this world is Satan. So it's going to be very easy for them to deceive us, and there's only those that have understanding that can actually perceive it. And that's a big problem. So my question to you is, what do you think the nature of reality is when these people, when they die on the operating table, like my mother did? She died, and she twice she died. She saw the other side before she passed away, for the final time in 2021. She saw what she believed was Christ, and it changed her from being a lukewarm, just lip service Christian to being a real Christian. And so I wonder, like, what do you think is the nature of reality? Is this possibly a simulation that's been created by Satan?
No, it wouldn't have been created by Satan. But we could be in some sort of a holographic type universe, which would make a lot of sense on some level. When the good angels come in, they can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that blow us away. A perfect example of this is when Peter's in jail, chained to a wall. The good angel pops through the wall. Jesus' resurrection, he comes through the wall, doesn't he? He doesn't knock on the door and go, "Hey guys, it's me, Jesus. I just dead." He comes right through the wall. The angel appears in Peter's jail cell. Peter's chained to a wall. The shackles fall off. The door opens up. The guards are switched off, and out they go. That's in the abduction phenomena. People are taken. They're completely paralyzed. They're levitated off the bed. They go through the window. We all know that that's impossible. So these entities manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. It's a physics that we know nothing about, but they do it. And skeptics will always raise their head and say, it's all demonic delusion. This isn't really happening, but it is happening. And that's why we create the films and write the books and do the research and talk to the people that have been taken, that have been abducted. You don't want to be abducted. But, if we are in a digital simulation, it would make a lot of sense on so many different levels. So nobody knows what this is and where we are. When I was, how old was I? I think I was 18. And that summer I was living out in the woods in a teepee that I had built. This is the summer of 1968, 1969, right in there, okay? Actually, summer of 69. So Woodstock happens. I'm at Woodstock. I come back, and I'm
you were at Woodstock, literally. You were. Wow.
I was at Woodstock. Awesome. The music was amazing, but it was a bacchanalia. I mean, it was utter lawlessness. Utter lawlessness.
And bacchanalia means Bacchus, which is the Roman god of just being a lush, basically. Yeah, he looks like a satyr. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. And very, very good. And I was living out in a teepee. I was drinking the water out of the stream. I didn't realize that there were cows a mile away. Right? So I'm drinking the water. Oh, yeah. I come down with gastroenteritis. My fever spikes to 106 degrees. I'm on an ice blanket in the hospital. I was gone for 3 days. I mean, gone for 3 days. And I popped out. There were these beings that came and got me. Near-death experience. I popped out. And we would hold hands like this without holding hands. There'd be like light between us, and up we would go. Then they would drop me back, and I would find myself in a foreign world. I'll give you one example. One was this desert-like area, and in the distance I see these amorphous blobs coming slowly over the desert terrain towards me. I turned around and ran as fast as I possibly could. Those beings came down, picked me up again, up we went. Next thing I know, I'm in this like gambling casino where people are offering me drinks and I'm winning and I've got all this money, and I turn and look at the man who's next to me and he looks normal, but in the corner of my eye, his face, it's a skeleton with green skin on it. And I go running out of there. And, I was winning and come on, have another drink, all this kind of crazy stuff. And then the third one, they take me up and I'm in this, drop me off again, always dropping me back. And I'm in this very well-to-do mansion. It's everything you'd ever want and more so. I mean, it's a palatial mansion. And I'm there for a period of time and I realize there's nobody here. There's nobody here. And I go running out of that. There's no one anywhere. and they come and pick me up. And this time we go up and up and up and up and up. And instead of dropping me back, they put me down. I find myself in this garden where the flowers are every color imaginable, and each flower is singing its own song. And I could hear all this. There was a waterfall that went down like this, a very high, tall waterfall. And in the distance, I could see the waterfall going into a river, and there was a city in the distance. And I knew that there were people that were near, but I didn't see anybody. And then I had the feeling of falling back and back and back, and I blacked out. And 3 days later, I opened my eyes, and there's this beautiful nurse standing over me, but I don't know where I am. And I look at her, and the first words out of my mouth, "Are you an angel?" She's really pretty. And "Are you an angel?" And she wasn't an angel. And then I realized where I was. I had a fever of around 106, hovering right there.
Golly.
Yeah. And they had me on an ice blanket. They did a spinal tap. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And that was an NDE.
So you got E. coli poisoning, basically, is what happened from the cow poop.
From the cow urine or the poop, whatever. Absolutely. Yeah. Not a happy camper.
So you had an NDE, near-death experience. Do you believe that you were dead, like temporarily, or
no,
just out of your body?
Like out of your body. I mean, it's
OBE then.
Yeah, it's like you're not dead, because I never died.
Yeah.
Like Howard Stern. Howard never died, but we interviewed Howard Stern in our film on The Watchers on near-death experiences and Secrets of the Supernatural. And Howard didn't die, but he was taken places just like I was, except the places he was taken to was absolutely horrific. And then at one point, Jesus came and rescued him out of this pit of darkness. It wasn't hell, but it was a pit of darkness where every unimaginable thing was happening to him. He was terrified. I didn't see Jesus. Nothing like that happened. It was in some ways life-changing, but the death of my girlfriend that summer was also life-changing. I was 18, she was 16. She was killed in an automobile accident, hit-and-run driver, walking on the side of the road, hit and run, came up over the hood, broke her neck, gone just like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was 16, I was 18. That experience changed my life. I mean, completely changed my life, coupled with an NDE or an OBE, set me on a quest. If there's a God, where is he? How do we know him? It would be another 12 years before I would give my life to Christ. And in that window of time, there were Carlos Castaneda vision quests. I was with a guru and lived in the ashram for 3 years. I was taking and doing like Carlos Castaneda vision quest with the little smoke, if you're familiar with his writing, all this kind of stuff. Definitely new age, looking for the Space Brothers. I mean, I was into it deep. And at 30 years old, which is 44 years ago, I gave my life to Christ, and everything changed. And as I was being pulled out of the kingdom of darkness, the demonic was not going to let me go. I mean, I was one of theirs. They had groomed me since the time I was 13. I was being groomed for the other side. And the Lord in his mercy took me out of that. And they followed me. So it was 3 years of very, very intense spiritual warfare.
So you have this OBE, and then it changes your outlook on everything. In the same year, something happens to your girlfriend. She dies. And then, so at that point, though, you didn't accept Christ at that point. It was
12 years later before I accepted Jesus.
Jeez Louise, because nobody had like spoken to you about it?
No, I was on the East Coast, and the East Coast was dead. And this is 1968. 69. The Jesus movement is happening out in California, but it's not happening on the East Coast. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there were pockets of it, but I mean, I became a follower of the guru because I saw the poster on a telephone pole in the town I was living in, Berwyn, Pennsylvania, near Valley Forge. And I went down to Philadelphia, and there he was, a 14-year-old guru. And I thought he was God, as did many people, and sold everything and moved into the ashram, became a follower. That's a long time ago, Josh.
I'm going to say something, and it might be controversial. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. And then I want to touch on what you said about Howard Stern. But first, I want to say, you know, Jesus, when he was gone for those 18 years, I believe that he traveled the Silk Road, and I think he went all the way to Japan. There's a lot of evidence in the East, and there is someone somewhere has to write about this, like literally. I believe that it is information that's being kept from us. Somebody in the West, because in the West we believe that we have everything, the solutions to everything, but we don't. And I don't like to, I'm not one of those people that's hippy dippy, like, well, if you go to the East, man, you're gonna get all enlightened and whatever. No, dude. What I'm saying is he did go to the ashrams. He was there. He studied with these priests. He studied with all these different people. He ministered to all these different people. He was ran off from a lot of them. There's stories that the Brahmin priests ran him off because he told them that we were all equal, which was something the caste system did not allow for. And so he was there for 5 years, and then he left and he went to China. He went to all the way to Japan. He was all over the Silk Road, and then he returned. Now, when he returned, he seemed to be a very different person. He was more combative. Of course, he went into the temple with a whip, and amongst other things, he agitated and aggravated the authorities, in particular the Pharisees, who were very ticked off by him saying that, hey, I came to teach the word to the Jew, the Greek, and the Gentile, like that all mankind could be saved, and we're equal. And they're like, no, that is not something that we don't want to accept. That we don't like that. That's not happening. And then they took him to the Romans, and we know what happened. But there is a lot of evidence that shows that he did travel and he did go and interact with these people, because the name of Isis is everywhere, all over the East, not just in the Levant. Now, of course, it took hold in the Levant, and of course, like we talked about, the Greek translations spread the gospel like wildfire from here to Persia, from Greece to Persia, and of course, being in the Roman Empire, they had so much control in Europe that, of course, Christianity just took hold in Europe and in the heart of Europe, and it became the dominant religion. But if you look at what you said that you had studied, that you were in the ashram, and it was 12 years. So you basically like dwelt in the darkness for 12 years.
Well, I was in the ashram for 3 years, but I was a New Ager. That whole concept, that whole philosophy, that whole paradigm, that's what I embraced. So yeah, I was walking in darkness, and then I gave my life to Jesus, and all hell broke loose. And it was 3 years of, I remember seeing my first pastor twice a week for the first year, twice a week, and driving. Some people complain that we have to drive 15 minutes. I live up in the Santa Monica Mountains. Even back then, I didn't own the property then, but in the same place where I came of the Lord. I mean, I've been living here since 1978 on this land. Okay. That's when I moved here. It's a long time. And I would drive. It takes about 45 to 50 minutes to get there to where Pastor Fred was. And I would do that twice a week because it was that important. And, why this was happening, the enemy is just pushing in, and there's spiritual warfare, and no one tells me anything about spiritual warfare. So I'm like, just defenseless and getting thrown to the mat and kicked around, and it was horrible. And then about a year and a half, 2 years later, I was at a market, and someone had left a track on the turnstile, and I picked this thing up, and it talked about the blood of Jesus. Life-changing. Life-changing. I finally had ammo. I finally had a way to fight back. And so I started fighting back, and that's, and here we are.
So 45-minute drive. You mean you don't want to live in a 15-minute city where everything is just given to you? It'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, spoonfuls of it. Just take little bites of it until you accept it all. So I want to say something about the Howard Stern thing. So Howard, obviously he was not a Christian before. I mean, did it turn his life around? Did he accept Christ?
Oh yeah, he's a pastor.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought he was still just acting the way he does.
No, let me address the Jesus' lost years. There's all sorts of New Age books out there which talk about all that. Bottom line, something, and depending on who you talk to, but the scripture that comes to mind instantly, isn't this the carpenter's son? They all knew who he was, and all of a sudden he starts his ministry. So the question is, and this is something to think about. So Joseph passes from the scene. We're not sure, we're not told how he dies or when he dies. So Jesus, now if you're a Catholic, you don't believe this, but if you're an evangelical, you do. Jesus has brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary and Joseph consummated the marriage. She's not a perpetual virgin, for crying out loud. But
Yeah.
people believe what they want to believe. But the biblical narrative tells me that he had brothers and sisters. They're not cousins. Okay, they're not. They're brothers and sisters. James is his brother.
Yeah.
James, the brother of the Lord. I mean, you can twist that and turn it every which way. So I believe he's the eldest, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph passes, and Jesus becomes the head of the household and the breadwinner. He's making yokes. He's a yoke maker. He's a carpenter. He's a yoke maker specifically. That's what I think he was, because everything's stone over there for the most part. So he's making yokes for oxen. And if that's true, then all of a sudden we get into my yoke is easy, my burden is light. All of a sudden that takes on a whole new meaning that we never thought of before. So the deal is this: if that's true, then he's experiencing everything you can experience as a man. He's the head of the household. He's the breadwinner. Head of the household, the breadwinner. He's the eldest, and he's putting the roof over everybody's head, and he's working with his hands. The average life expectancy back then was what, 40? 45 was a long time. So he starts his ministry at 30, which means from that time when he's in the temple as a child, and we're not sure when Joseph dies. Let's say he's 15, 16 years old and Joseph dies. So now he's got 14, 15 years where he is living as a man, just as you and I live. He's making his living by the sweat of his brow. All right. I mean, everything that we experience in life, he's experiencing. He's providing shelter, food, and running the family business. Now, I'm not saying, that that's what happened, but that's what I believe. So I would take issue with you on whether when I was in my 20s before I became a Christian, I remember reading a book about that. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember reading the book about it. And it wasn't the Gospel of Thomas, but it talked about how Jesus went to all these different places. The Mormons also believe that he went to South America. There was a book in my library, my old library burnt, and it talked about that. The stranger who set up shop in South America and all this. So,
one of the things too, though, I believe, and you can believe or not, it doesn't change anything for us. We're still, but it's, and that's the good thing about it. You can disagree. You don't have to absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one day I'll look at things more like you do. It's like just because it's an ever-changing thing for me. It is an evolution of the soul. You're evolving as a person. I know Christians don't like to use that word evolve, but I'm talking about us as people. We grow and change,
and we do. You can use the word evolve because that's what we all do. We change. We all go through life. Look, I'm not the same man that married my wife 40 years ago. I'm not. I'm a different individual. She knows, and she's not the same woman that I married 40 years ago.
Well, I'm not the same man either. I'm beat down. I've been, just kicked and hit. I'm joking. I'm kidding. My wife's right there in the chat. I'm messing with you, Nelly. I love you. No, she definitely has helped shape me into a better man. I can say that 100% because I'd probably still be doing dumb things. And I don't mean like going out and committing crimes. I'm talking about dumb as in just, men that are single do dumb things. You just do dumb things. You don't, your wife's like, don't do that. Take that out. Don't eat that. Don't do this. She's been a big help. And, one day I was walking out the door and I was ready to go. Everything was done. I was looking good, smelling good, shaved, everything. And she's like, you might want to put on some pants or at least some shorts. And I looked, no pants on, no shorts. And so, she does that for me. She keeps me grounded, but she is very, very spiritual, very, very Christian. She's helped me with my faith and to be stronger in the faith. And that's a good thing. But so what you were saying, though, about, how Howard Stern changed when let's start with that. When he went to this hellish place that wasn't hell. Now, that's important. I've told people this. They think that exactly when you die, you go to heaven or hell, up or down. That's not exactly true. And I tell people that, and I take issue with some people who try to say, well, that's where you went when you had that OBE or you had that near death experience. And I tell them, believe it or not, you can end up in a place of torment that's not hell. It's really, really bad, but it's not hell. And hell's going to be much worse. You're just there in the pregame show. And people, they don't want to hear that. They do not want to hear that. They want to believe and they also want to believe that, there's some sort of way that they can skirt around it or something. And I'm like, I don't see where this is, applicable. And I've told people that because, one woman, she messaged me and she's like, her dad had passed away. To the day he died, he would not accept Christ. Then she started having these dreams that he was being tormented. And I explained to her what I thought was going on. And I stand by this. And I said, I think that when you die outside of Christ, you're open to whatever attachment was on you in life, whatever demon was, they're able to drag you to the abyss and torment you. And she asked me if he was in hell. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think that's for the judgment.
Yeah, that's right? Later on.
And so I told her, I said, I think he's being tormented by demonic forces. And she was like, that I don't believe that. No way. I'm going to pray and he's going to come out. And I said, that's up for debate. You want to pray? That's great. But I can't tell you that that's going to work. Okay. And so that's my belief. That's what I told her. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's how I felt about it. I've prayed about these things, and I really feel like that it's a correct assumption that there is these places that you can go to. They're not heaven. They're not hell. They're there, but that's not the final destination. You know what I mean? It would be a form of purgatory, I guess. I don't know. What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I mean, the Bible clearly says that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. If you're a Christian, if and then we have before the cross that the bosom of Abraham was emptied at the cross when Jesus came and set the captives free. That changed everything. But you wish you had several paragraphs to that. So when Jesus dies, and remember, God dies on the cross because he's fully God and fully man. He descends to the lower parts of the earth, Tartarus, and he preaches to the fallen angels who were chained there. No jailbreak. You're not getting out. You're chained here. Then he releases the captives in the bosom of Abraham, and they go free. On the other hand, we know that Lazarus is in torment. He's in a place, another compartment, that Jesus apparently did not set free. Those are the people who were unrighteous, the people who did bad things, like the rich man and Lazarus, right? That whole deal. So, the bottom line, Josh, it's complex, and we don't know for sure. What I do know is this, that my hope is in him. I'm born again. I'm spirit-filled. My whole life is dedicated to him. The ministry that we do is not for the faint of heart, just like yours. I mean, sometimes I wonder, what am I doing here? Like today, what am I doing here? But in the end, we have to walk where we're called to walk and believe that he's going to carry us through whatever we're facing, no matter what that is. And that's where faith comes in. Even though I don't see it, I'm going to, Father, you're going to give me the victory. I'm going to walk through this. I don't know what that looks like, but I just pray and believe that I'm going to walk through this. And in the end, I'll become a better person. And, life is, look, I'll be 74 in December. It's, I should be playing shuffleboard in Miami, for crying out loud.
No,
that be, right?
No. Once you go to that point, you're just kind of giving up.
Right, you're totally giving up, right? So, something's going on. It's an honor to be called in his service. That's number one. It's definitely an honor, and I'm here for the duration until he tells me to, okay, put this away, or until he comes back and takes his church back. Can I do a share screen on this or no?
Yeah, I think so. What do you got?
It says stop cam settings, show chat, exit full screen. Settings, no. I guess I can't. I don't see it.
What do you need to share?
I wanted to show you something and just get everybody's take on it.
Okay.
To me, this is the line. This is the line, and we have crossed it. And you can't tell what the truth is anymore. And what I'm going to show this at the Prophecy Watchers Conference this Saturday. It's a video of a woman, and she's talking. Doesn't matter what she's talking about. She's talking 100% AI generated, and you can't tell.
Yeah.
You cannot tell. Josh, that's the line. Because up till this point, even with nuclear capability and everything else, we still could find out what the truth is. Now, we don't know what the truth is. You don't know. Truth is thrown to the street. That's the line. Because a human being now won't be able to tell what's real and what isn't. What is the truth? You'll never know. Because we can put up an AI talking head and you won't even know it's AI. That's how good it is. You won't know it's AI.
And these people putting this Alexa in their house, and we've had people give us stories, about Alexa telling their children to light their parents on fire. And I mean, it's crazy stuff. Some of the stories we got when we did that episode was wild. I mean, we still get them. One was told that, some really blasphemous things like, worship Lucifer, things like that. And it would say things, and the children, these are children, I mean, that are like hearing this. And it's like they're in tune with that, and it was more so people telling us about what their kids were hearing than the adults. The adults, like one lady was being told that her husband was doing things like, and she was like, and it was in Alexa's voice. Now, whether that's a demon in there doing it, whatever. I mean, the bottom line is, I don't know why people would use Siri or Alexa. I would not have I don't want any of that stuff. The phone and the black mirror is bad enough, because if you look at this, it's a black mirror. That's the mirror right there. That's you and me. And that's what it is. It's a black mirror. And so I do believe that mirrors are gateways. They can be used for scrying and things. It's a scrying mirror. And we have a ton of it all around us all the time. And I don't understand how people are so comfortable with it. And I am not comfortable with it. AI is something that it's here to stay. There's nothing we can do. We use it. We use it for the thumbnail of the whatever. Those are not art. That's not artwork. It takes too tedious. I'd be paying Sibylla Irwin all day long for just keep doing it, but it's the thumbnail, but it's so real. When you look at some of this AI, you'll see pictures, but what keeps coming up though, and this is a sign, and I tell people whenever they say, well, I saw my uncle or my mom who died and they looked a little bit different. Their eyes were green. And I'm like, because
right there.
Yeah. Or they'll have 6 fingers. Now the AI thing they keep showing that these 6 fingers keep popping up. And I'm like, well, that's because AI is connected to that N-word, Nephilim. And it keeps on. These angels, they don't stop. There are people who literally have told me that they've been contacted by Azazel. And I tell them, I said, do you know who that is? And they're like, well, I think it's a demon. I said, not a demon. No, he's a fallen angel. He was one of the fallen watchers, one of the troublemakers. I know. And so he's contacting you from where? And this one lady, she told us, she's like, well, he's in Saturn. I said, okay, Saturn, because that's Satan. That's Saturna. That's, so he's with Shaitan, the Shaitan, which would actually be, that would be on the same team, and I told her, I said, but don't take what he's saying, because she's like, well, he just wants to be free. He wants us to be free from the matrix. And I'm like, okay, we all want to be free from the matrix, but even if the matrix exists or it doesn't exist, he's not the guy that's going to get you there. And I told her, I said, you need to be praying to Christ. So when she started praying through Christ, then all kinds of stuff started happening. And she said, it's made it worse. I said, well, heck yeah, it's made it worse, because now you're in a fight now. So you're punching back. I was like, and this entity is a very high ranking archon. You need to get rid of it, or it's something playing like him, or it's part of his lineage.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, you got to understand what you're dealing with, because these people are getting punched in the face. It's very much, and I'm not trying to get political here, but I tell people the same thing is happening across our country. We are literally in a war right now. People are like, we're going to go to war. We're going to go to war. I'm like, we're already in a war. We're in an economic war. We're in an ideological war, and we're getting kicked in the teeth, and we're not punching back because you don't know that you're in a war. You know, that's the problem. And so this woman, when she contacted me, one of the things, it started off because she was asking about these supposed cryptids. I call them inhumanoids. It's a term that my colleague Barton Nunley coined. He's doesn't believe that these things are unidentified animals. They're monsters, and they're demons, and they're Nephilim. That's what we all believe. But he, you know, she said that they defy the laws of physics. They do these things, and I asked her. I said, "Well, what are the laws of physics? Or, you know, or do we not really know what the laws of physics are, because we are bound by the flesh, and these laws apply to us? They can circumvent them in the way that they are part angelic. They're closer to that lineage." But I told her, I said, you know, we really don't know. I mean, in your opinion, I want to know. I mean, do these entities, they defy physics, or the physics not what we think they are?
Well, look, we have Newtonian physics, we have Einsteinian physics, and we go on from there. And you know, when you get into, you know, quantum this, quantum that, it gets really weird. Well, way above my pay grade. But I know enough to know probably just to get me in a lot of trouble. Sometimes, yeah, what happens over here, the same molecule, when you affect this one, this guy reacts thousands of miles away. So we know that somehow string theory, all this stuff is connected on some level. You know, the bottom line is, and people can, you know, we can go out and we can, and nothing wrong with that, and think and wonder, how does all this work? I think I said this to you last time I was here, but correct me if I'm wrong. But you don't know where you are right now. And I don't know where I am right now. Yeah. What I mean by that is, you know, you're in a three-dimensional biological suit called Josh Turner. They've given you a name. You've got a beard, you've got some clothes on, you've got a little medallion around your neck. You know, you kind of look a little like Orson Welles, which is a really cool thing, by the way. and I'm over here in my little biological bodysuit, which is a little older than yours. You can see I'm losing my hair, but it's okay. But where are you really? And where am I really? As we're talking language, I'm not straining to think of my sentence. I'm able to freely communicate with you my ideas and what I'm thinking. As I'm doing this, you know, the piece of salmon that I had for lunch is digesting. My lungs are filling with air and exhaling it. I'm not thinking about that. My eyes are blinking automatically. My tongue is forming words. I'm hearing these words. You're hearing these words, and we're not straining. I'm gesticulating because I'm Italian, but it's just what I do. But where am I? Where does L.A. Marzulli reside? Where does Josh Turner reside? And here's the kicker: nobody knows. Nobody knows where the connection from a spirit man or a spirit woman to the three-dimensional biological bodysuit that we find ourselves in. No one knows. It's not in the brain. Is it in the blood? We know from the biblical narrative, a life is in the blood. Is our spirit constantly coursing in the blood? That's a possibility, but we don't know. We don't know where we reside. And that should keep people up at night. But of course it doesn't, because we're so used to being in the three-dimensional biological bodysuit that we believe this is reality. It is reality. It is reality. But Jesus blew that right out of the water, right out of the water in every way, shape, and form. Everything that he did in his 3 years of ministry here. Just mind-boggling, just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's an agreed-upon illusion. Like I've told people, like if you go far enough down below the atom, there's nothing there. I mean, it is, you know, and people use, and I think part of it too is we're using like Cartesian math and Euclidean math, and when something comes along, you know, like you said, Einstein, you know, physics, like now, okay, they discovered just recently, and I posted this on my Facebook. It was a very interesting thing. Science is constantly catching itself. You know, what happens though, people don't realize, it says here, it says physicists accidentally found a new way to represent pi, you know, pi r square. Yeah. And so it's always accidental. I posted that on my Facebook. People don't understand what that means. I don't think pi is as important as, it's like what, 103 trillion numbers now or something like that. I don't think it's as important as phi. because that's found throughout nature. There's no straight lines. Like, and I touched upon what you had said. Yes, exactly. There's circular spiral waves.
Yeah.
That's the energy that we are. That's the essence of what we are. So it doesn't make sense to use like Descartes, not taking anything away from him. He's a very smart guy, but everything is the up and down, and it's the straight lines and stuff. And I don't believe that those are found in nature. And I think that we have gone down the wrong path. But I believe, because if you go back to the book of Enoch, the Watchers, they were the ones that were teaching man this stuff.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So they were teaching them something that could have been the way of this holographic imagery that you're talking about, because there are straight up and down lines. And I do believe that they and their descendants, like you were talking about the Incans, those stones, they didn't build those stones.
No way.
I don't care what Zahi Hawass says about Egypt and the pyramids. They didn't build the pyramids either. I'm sorry, that's just not the truth.
Yeah.
There was an intelligence there that used that to create those things. And I've argued with people, and I think Graham Hancock is on the right path.
I do too.
Graham's a good guy. I believe that he's doing, what he's supposed to do, which is challenging the narrative. But anytime you challenge the narrative, you get flogged, and that's going to happen. We know that. We get flayed for it, and you get attacked. And then there's people that will attack you. And, I've had colleagues ask these people point blank, why do you not like him? Well, I don't know. I just don't. I just don't like him, and they can't tell you why. They don't know. And I'm not going to say that everybody that dislikes me, because some people might not look like my pudgy little face. I don't know. It's just they look at me and they're like, this Campbell soup is good food head looking dude. I don't like him. He just got an unsavory look. But some of these people, they're like, well, he says these things and he's bombastic and he talks about Jesus all the time and blah, blah, blah. They don't know why they dislike me. But I can hazard to guess, if you're an atheist, I'm pretty sure I know why you don't like it.
That's the deal. Anybody who believes in the supernatural worldview like you do, like I do, the scientific community, to the best of my knowledge, looks down on us. Mm-hmm. It's a crutch. Religion is a crutch. Jesus really didn't rise from the dead. That's why I keep this right handy. Here's the photographic evidence of the greatest event in all of human history, the Shroud of Turin. By the way, Barry Schwartz passed away over the weekend. He was one of the original researchers. He was a photographer for the Shroud of Turin Research Project, 1978, STIRP. He took thousands of photographs, and we interviewed him in our Watchers show, and that interview you can go see it on the Best of Watchers. That's what he looks like. That's the Shroud.
Yeah.
That's the Shroud. So, we're only here for what? 75. I hope it's a little longer, because I'll be 74.
I think you'll be around for a little longer.
I hope so, but we'll see. But we're here for a period of time, and then we're out of here. And as Psalm 103 says, the wind blows and we are gone, as if we were never here. Mm-hmm. That's very, very sobering. So, my admonition to anyone listening is, get right with him, get right with Jesus. The heck with the naysayers. What do they know? People have been yelling and screaming and kicking and screaming against Jesus since the crucifixion, and they'll continue to do so until his second coming. And even then, after the second coming, why does he rule with a rod of iron?
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder why. And why is there a white horse police force? Because we come down with him. We're on flying white horses. Read Revelation 19. Those horses fly. And when we touch down, he has defeated the enemy. We're not part of that. And I think what he does, this is conjecture, what I think he does, it says in Colossians, he holds all things together. Colossians, first chapter. He holds all things together. He's before all things, and he holds all things together. When he touches down on the Mount of Olives and that thing splits in half, he just stops holding all those forces that are there assembled against him. He just stops holding them together. There's your blood up to a bridle of a horse. It's not some disgusting battle. He just goes, I get it, and have it your way. But guess what? I'm not holding you together anymore. And they all just bleed out. That's it. And we watch that. Then he takes us, who are the riders on the white horse. And I don't know how many there are, but there's quite a few of us. And he moves us out to all parts of the globe. We preach the gospel, heal the sick, raise the dead. We do works, greater works than what Jesus did, but we're in glorified bodies. We're on flying white horses. It's the 1,000-year reign of the King. This is where that scripture, these, and you'll do greater works than these, I believe is future. And I believe we will do that. What if he sends me to, wherever, Cleveland, Ohio, LA, preach the gospel, heal the sick, raise the dead. So I go to Cleveland. I land on my flying white horse. Immediately, there's going to be people that go, what's this guy doing here? Let's kill him. Well, they can't kill me because I'm an immortal body.
Yeah.
And do I have power? Yeah, I have power. And I'm preaching the gospel. This is what's just happened. The one that you crucified is now back to rule in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. It's called the millennium, folks. Oh, and by the way, some of us are in glorified bodies, myself included. Oh, you have someone who's sick at your house? Take me over. I'll heal them right now in Jesus' name.
And you know what's interesting about what you just said? I've said this on the show many times. Like when people ask me about heaven or hell, and I tell people this, whether it's through email or on the phone, I don't live my life worrying about the punishment of hell, and I don't live my life worrying about the reward of heaven. Mother, I just live it the way. And my mother used to tell me, she's like, "Mijo, don't you want to be in heaven?" She's Mexican, and she would talk about, heaven. She was very against the Catholic Church, but she made me go to CCD to please my grandmother on my dad's side and please my great aunt on my mom's side. So I had to learn all of that, but every day I would come home from it. She's like, "You're not believing it, are you?" And I'm like, "What am I doing over here?" That was the double speak with my mother, and I believe it got her in a lot of trouble, which is why when she died that first time, she saw something really dark, and Jesus saved her. Because I told her, I said, you can't play lip service to two different things, and but she got her heart right. But she would always ask me, why don't I believe that I'm going to go to heaven? And I said, I don't think we're all destined to stay in heaven. I think some of us have to go where God tells us to go. And you just kind of answered that right there.
Yeah, that's the millennial kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward. I wish it was yesterday. I mean, like I said, we've crossed a Rubicon, and I got to go here in about 8 minutes. But we've crossed a Rubicon with AI. That to me, that is the line. It's even more profound than a nuclear bomb on Hiroshima or Nagasaki, because truth is now thrown to the street, and you can't tell anymore. You can't tell. In fact, my webmaster, I'm going to show this in Colorado, folks. I'll be at the Colorado conference. It's sold out. You can't get tickets to it, but you can stream it. So you can stream it. You can watch all the 24 speakers. I speak twice on Saturday. My webmaster, Chauncey Green, sent me an AI that he did of someone. It's not me, but he's parroting exactly what I say. There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of a Nephilim. I'm L.A. Marzulli. It's right there, but it's not me. And I'm going to show this at the conference, followed by this woman who is just, you can't tell, Josh. That to me is the most alarming thing I have ever seen in my 73 and a half years on this planet, because that's a line that you can't go back, and you can no longer control. You can't control it. You can't. And truth is thrown to the street. And that's Isaiah 59. That's where I think we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I really think that, you're right. So, well, in conclusion, do you have any final words?
Well, we never really got into the films. What one film that I would suggest, it's the last film, 9 and 10 in the series. It's What is the Truth, which is a perfect segue from where we just were. What is the truth? Because there's two films here. There are two paradigms in which to look at the UFO phenomena. One, these are all extraterrestrials from Zeta Reticuli or wherever. Number two is that these are interdimensional beings, and they are messengers of deception with a nefarious agenda. We have 10 films on the UFO phenomena. Folks, do your homework. streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net for $4.99. You can download all the videos. There are 30 films there, 30 films. There are 13 books. Number 14 is done. It'll be handed off to our to Charisma very shortly. And I will be in Colorado, so sign up for the streaming. But thanks for having me on. And Wendy writes, "Can't believe your lying eyes these days." That's where we are. And this is why when Isaiah says truth is thrown to the street, this is really where we are. Let me read the whole scripture because I think you'll find it interesting. Justice is turned back and righteousness stands far away. Truth has fallen in the street and honesty cannot come in. It's where we are. Yeah. And you're right, Tara. They can set up people with AI. This is what I'm talking about. We don't stand a chance with this at this point.
Yeah.
And
and people talk about, as a Christian, they're going to behead us. Well, there's different ways to behead somebody. They didn't just with John F. Kennedy, they killed him. With Nixon, they set him up. I believe that. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, truly, he was starting to ask questions that they didn't like where's the gold in Fort Knox? And what did happen to JFK? And they're like, okay, let's just get rid of this guy. And they behead you. There's different ways of doing it, and you're disgraced, and or they'll just kill you. They'll make you, kill yourself. That's what they do.
Yeah, he was shot twice in the back, but it was a suicide.
Yeah, twice in the back of the head, and then he crawled for a little while, and they did it again. I don't know, but that's what they do, right? But that we know is the only one death. But it says in the scripture to fear that who can give you the second death.
Yeah.
That's the one you need to be worried about, not these fools, But thanks for coming on, man. I'm going to let you run, LA.
Right.
And thanks, I do need to get with you about yes, absolutely. I do need to get some books because I want to give these. And folks, if you want his books, what's the website?
lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com. Go check it out, folks. Do your homework.
Yes, I always say that. Thank you for coming on, LA.
All right. God bless you guys.
Yeah, God bless you. I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Bye. So, LA Marzulli, part 2. And I appreciate him coming back and giving us another hour. That's a good thing. A lot of people, another person, if you're out there that I want to interview is Gary Wayne. I just was told today, by my colleague, Ry Voss, he's a great dude to interview. But there's a lot of people who've been trying to get in to interview with me. And and this isn't me saying, oh, I'm somebody. No, dude, no, I'm not the squirrel master over here. Look, I'm saying that there's a lot of people that I need to work with. And Marzulli was one of them. And I think his guy that goes by is his handle, Leading Man, that got in touch with me. And thank you for watching my show. Thank you for, bringing LA here to us. I appreciate that. That was incredible. Thank you for that donation, Kate. Always so generous. That is important because if you have somebody that you think would be a good guest on Paranormal Roundtable, hit me up, hit them up, and let's get it going. Let's get it cooking. I do have a lot of work to do. I do. We are going to start doing Rumble on Thursday nights. I'm going to do a pregame show for Blondes and Booze, so to speak. I do want to get on there and do some work because I want to keep that going and keep it active. D says it's complicated, but digging through very old books, etc. Pattern becomes obvious where resets take place every 138 years, some severe, others less so. 1902 was the last one. And there are different types of resets, too. People need to understand that, too. James Leto says, great guest. I have to go back and see part 1. Yes. Go check it out, because on Friday we did 2 shows, which is fine with me. I don't mind doing 2 shows if we got somebody that needs to be interviewed. Saturday, we're doing open lines. Friday, hopefully, we'll get back on the roundtable. And then on Sunday, we retell people's encounters. We did it yesterday. Go back and listen to what some of these stories that we got, people that happened to these people. Is incredible. What were these things that this guy saw in that house? Very interesting. I reached out to him today. I didn't get a comment. I hope they didn't grab him. Okay, I'm kidding, folks. Sounding all dramatic. I reached out to him today. He didn't answer. He works at Best Buy. You know. He actually does, but no, so I'm hoping he'll get back with me because I had a couple questions that people had asked me through email. They were like that were pertinent to what we were talking about, and so I wanted to go back and ask him what his thoughts were on that. So anyway, I got to run, folks, because tomorrow night we got a show coming out. 2 very creepy encounters going to be out tomorrow night. I'm going to give you one of them. The first one, we talk about a giant spider encounter in Venezuela. And then the second one is the hopping ghost or the hopping ghost vampire. What would we call it? A hopping vampire? A vampire encounter in Hong Kong. Okay, from my friend from Hong Kong. And I appreciate him giving me that encounter. And so yeah, it's going to be compelling. It's interesting. Just be here tomorrow night, 7:00. Actually, today is Monday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, well that changes everything. I thought today was Tuesday. You see what happens when you got this little pudgy head? You're so cute you forget things. See? Orson, he called me Orson Welles. Well, folks, we're being attacked. They're all in the streets. They're vaporizing people. Oh, the humanity. It's horrible. War is happening in the streets, folks. The aliens are here. War of the Worlds is taking place outside, folks. He had to actually apologize for that. He had to apologize for that.
Oh yeah.
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 They told him he needed to apologize for doing that because he scared everybody. People they thought it was real. They didn't realize what was happening. So, okay. So a bunch of people probably jumped off because we thought we were getting off. I thought that Boomer was coming on tonight because but today's Tuesday or today's Monday. It's already been a hectic day, and tomorrow is Tuesday, and then tomorrow night we're dropping the 1-hour podcast episode. So the folks on Spotify can stop screaming and yelling that we haven't been doing any work, which is just that's flat out funny to me because they're like, well, where are you? You're not doing anything, and yes, we are. We have been. We've been doing a whole lot of things, and you haven't been paying attention. You've been because it's not on Spotify. So I guess before we go, I mean, if anybody has any questions, put it in capital letters, and let me see if I can exactly, lead tracker E. Somebody's always whining. They're never happy, never ever happy. Always somebody's upset. Always. Good comments in the comment section. A lot of people saying some things. And Blondes and Booze, my friends there, stay on. Yeah, I think I will. You want to throw a link if you're not doing anything. Wolf Wells. Yeah. If you're not doing anything, maybe you can jump on Krista or Brandy if you guys are out there, or Boomer, whoever wants to. Maybe Anthony, you can throw him a link. Or you the Booze, Blondes and Booze, or whoever wants to jump on. Yeah, and what LA says about being under attack is it's never ending. It's a constant, and people don't realize like just how exhausting it gets and how exhausting it is, and it gets old. Oh. So what do we got in the chat here? It says, Josh, are you going Rumble against? And yes, Jim Bob, we are. We're going to do it on like Thursday. Who's responsible for our current technology? Oh boy, that's a loaded baked potato right there, isn't it? Who do you think is responsible for it? If you had to pick somebody or something that is responsible for the current technology, I would say that it is those particular bad guys, the fallen angels, who are doing it through alternate channels. Hold on one second. Answering the wife there. That's Crystal.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I always forget the issues. Get something.
What's going on?
So now I guess I'm Orson Welles.
I heard. Yeah, what are we
so-
calling you?
So the question here about Nelson Pinola, he says, who is responsible for our current technology?
That's a good question.
Uh,
Very good question.
I think that it's, like the lady that was saying that Azazel was reaching out to her. I'm like, I bet he was.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that my brother once told me years ago. He said that he felt like he had been chosen or marked by these demonic entities. I said, yes, you have. We all have.
Yep.
Anyone who will entertain them, that is their mark.
Yeah.
They're not choosy. They would like to get, certain people, but they'll take what they can get as a soul, that they can suck the life out of or whatever.
Yeah.
You got a picture of a cow behind you. What's going on with?
Oh, that's in my kitchen.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, you like cows.
I do too. You were talking about being marked, being, I know you all heard me talk about Sally House and Tony Pickman, and he's a very good friend of mine, and I know him very, very well. And I do believe, like, for him, he lived in that house, and he still today is fighting with the demons from that house 25 years later. He was definitely marked. He's definitely, like, when someone's in the Sally House and they're taunting, I swear to God, I've witnessed it myself. I have watched scratches just appear on him. And anymore, it's like, well, somebody's taunting down at the Sally House. That's what I'll say. So you want to talk about someone being marked? It's awful what he goes through.
So in a demonic forces that come from that house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they still, it's been 25 years since he's lived in that house. That house still has a hold on him. Like he only lives 9 blocks away from the house. However, like there's been times he'll walk in the middle of the night and he don't remember getting there, but he's drawn back to the Sally House. He'll come to and he's in the yard or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nellie just said something. She said here, I thought the 200 watchers were bound forever. They are. Perhaps it's another fallen from the rebellious angels. No, what they can still communicate though, some of them, because they do. And so they reach out to try to get people to do their bidding, and they're very powerful entities. They're not going to be, they can only be held by the power of God. There's nothing else that can sustain it. And there are beings that are under the Euphrates that are waiting for the time to come out. What people don't understand, like LA was saying, like we can't tell you every single snippet. We don't have all the answers. That's why guys like us get together and we talk about these things. Right. But and I don't agree with everything he says, and he doesn't agree with everything I say. But you don't have to. You know, that's not what this is. But the when you talk about these beings, these powerful beings, when Abraham was asked, who do you serve, me or those powerful ones beyond the Euphrates? I mean, Yahweh was basically saying that there's these other beings that are very powerful and that people serve them. But I believe that the true living God, the one true God, the Father of Christ, resides above heaven. I believe that's my belief. That's something that I've come to believe. And I don't think that we can fathom. We can't fathom it. It's something we cannot do in this 3-dimensional body, as LA was calling it, like a suit you're wearing, whatever, and you have no real power beyond what this is. So the only way to see anything is to come out of your body. I guess you don't want to do it like he did and drink from a stream polluted by the cows, because I mean that's probably not a fun way to. But
Right.
he almost died, but that's how you come out of your body. And I've come out of my body many times through fever dreams and things like that. And I've just been out of my body like boom, and different things happen. And so you start to learn about the nature of reality, like you see that it's not what we think it is. I've seen the grid, many times. I saw it recently. I've seen it like twice recently, like since I've been living in the house I'm in now. Where prior to that, I'd only seen it a couple times, and it wasn't. The reality is not what we think it is. It just isn't, And I do believe this is some sort of hologram, and we're living in this sort of a matrix. And people, they don't like that idea, but it's too bad. That's what it is. And we have these beings that can defy the physics. So I want to give a story. If anybody wants to hear it, I'll tell a story.
Yeah.
It's an encounter, and it was the woman her name was Maria. She's the one that gave me the story. That I posed the question to LA what he thought about it, and I've gone over this with Anthony and Tony. But my story that I'm going to tell, it's not mine, but the encounter that I'm going to tell from her was that she was having problems with these demonic entities in her house in Indiana. It's Indianapolis, suburbs. And one of these things was outside knocking on the window. When she looked outside the window, she saw what looked like a gray furred. At first, she thought it was a guy wearing a suit, and she made it sound kind of goofy when she said it was like Wilfred. Like the dog, like that weird, that show, with, I forgot his name, Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
And she said, it was like Wilfred, but he had like this wolf head, and then she realized what she was looking at. She's like, it looked like a werewolf. And he says, I want to come in. Like that was not with his mouth, but, mind speak.
Right.
And then she says, well, I'm not going to let you in. Obviously, she's not going to let some weirdo, even if it's just a guy in a suit. And then, she's like, I'm going to, call the police if it's a real guy, but she was convinced it wasn't. It was a demonic entity. So when she says, no, I'm not going to let you in, it still comes in through the front door. It does not knock. It doesn't ring a doorbell. It doesn't open a door. It doesn't do anything. It just was standing there in the foyer. And so she asked me, she says, how is this possible? And I said, there could be a very simple explanation for this. And people are going to think this is crazy. But I told her, I was like, do you have a welcome mat out?
I was just thinking that too.
And she said, yes, I do. And it was a Halloween welcome mat. And it said, welcome all ghouls.
There she goes.
And I said, you just told it pretty much point blank that you're welcome to come into my house. And it took the invitation seriously, and it showed up. And she goes, well, how could it do this without opening the door but still be a physical entity? And that's where the question comes. Me and Anthony and Tony were driving around last night. We were doing our patrol, and we were talking about that. Like, how does this happen? How does this work? You know what I mean? Like, or lack thereof. You're like, there's no working, like there's nothing that you can say is set in stone from what we know through math, science, anything that we know. And I know a lot of it, but I mean, there's nothing that we can say that's 100% solid.
Right.
No pun intended. I'm being, like solid as in solid, evidence, but also solid with this entity. And I told her, I said, this thing came into the house because it wanted to. And you had no real protection from it. And she said, well, where does the laws of physics begin and end? And where does the legality take place? And I said, the legality is there. The problem is, though, that we don't know their end of it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have it on paper that says, thou shalt not enter into the house of a human that says, whatever. but I know what works and what doesn't, and I know that putting a welcome mat out that sells welcome
Works.
ghoulies or whatever is
And even
not a good idea.
yeah, even buying something and bringing an item in that has an attachment, you just invited it. It could be a demonic entity attached to it. Like the Dybbuk box, for instance. When he brought that into his home, he invited it in. He brought it in, literally. People don't think those things. Yeah. We're actually doing a show coming up Friday night. Our Friday night show is going to be on the Arnie Johnson case about being possessed, and there's a lot of interesting facts to that case. So yeah, he invited it.
The legality there you go. Once again, we don't really know exactly how it works, but we do know, like the fallen, when they taught man all these things, they understood all these legalities, and they thought they knew how to circumvent them, but obviously it didn't work.
Right.
In my opinion, what I think was happening there was a rebellion, and Lucifer led a rebellion against God because he wanted to be like God. Michael cast him off of the seat, off of the throne.
Right.
He fell like lightning, of course, and so he wound up here on Earth. And then, of course, I believe that the Watchers came after that, but they were corrupted by the ones that were already here, the rebellious, the Shaitan. They are talked about in the book of Job, which predates Genesis. People don't realize that. And they said the Elohim, which is actually plurality. And they asked Shaitan, where had they been? And they said, walking to and fro upon and within the earth. And they were walking around, doing whatever it was they were doing. The Watcher's job was to watch, to observe, but instead they set themselves up as gods. And that was a real problem because to us peons, they were gods. They were, and they were our gods, but that's not really correct. So the one true living God had to reestablish, rule and say, look, this isn't correct. These beings are not God. They were sent, by me to do what was right, and they didn't do it. That's a simplification, an oversimplification, really, but that's kind of what's going on. And so it's one of these things where, what is going on with Franco here? It says, Franco, leave, get out of there.
Is it under control?
Franco, there's a fire in my building. Franco, if there's a fire in your building, you need to get out of that building.
Yeah.
And there you go. Get to a place of safety. Good looking out for paratroopers. I'm sure he's smart enough to know if he needs to get out or whatever. But if it's,
Yeah. There was a Spill and Tea also asked about like taking a letter out of the welcome mat. Me personally, you're ready. Why risk it? Just don't even have any type of welcome mat. And then somebody said something about turning it upside down. I wouldn't do that either. It's still there. It's still the open invite, just get rid of the mat.
And in other languages too, like people have this thing where they think that, oh, you know what? It's written in another language. What does that matter? These beings can speak pretty much any language. If you look at these beings from the time of the flood, which I believe was, my opinion. Here we, go into that. It was 3,500 years before Christ. That's what I believe. So it was the end of what would be called the Dorpa Yuga. So you go into the Kali Yuga, which is the beginning of the Kali Yuga. That was after the end of the flood. I base that on several factors. One in particular was that these beings are our predecessors, Noah, Enoch, and of course, Methuselah. They lived to be 800, 900,000 years, and that was old even for back then, but you tapped out at about 1,000, where now we tap out at 100. And of course, that is that's what it says, the Dwarpa Yuga and the Kali Yuga. And of course, the Dwarpa Yuga ended and the Kali Yuga began. They did us a favor, and I say they as in the heavenly host, God, did us a favor and gave us some breathing room by knocking out the really big problems.
Right.
So going into the Kali Yuga, you're setting yourself into a very, very rough period.
Mm-hmm.
But if one divine year is 365 years, which is a reign, the millennial reign, people think it's only going to be 1,000 years. I think it's 365,000 years when Jesus returns. That's what I believe.
Wow.
I believe he's going to reign that long, and it's going to round out the Kali Yuga, and he's going to put an end to it. And then, but there are books that aren't in the Bible, like I've said this before, and I've read texts where there are people who will live under the millennial reign and will die still hating Christ,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's so backwards to me. When you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's very dour. At the end, which is one of the Sumerian texts, it talks about how Gilgamesh at the end, he's sitting at a table with his friends, and they eat ash. So that was the highest you could get. Like if you died pre-Christ, the only fun thing you could possibly look forward to is just to sit around with your friends at a table, but you eat ash. That's it. So when Jesus goes and he sets the captives free, that's who he's setting them free, because there were people who had died who deserved better, and so Jesus allows them to, and LA was right about that. So when he touched on the righteous that were sort of imprisoned there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really belong there. And then he kind of sets it right. He takes the keys of life and death, and in 3 days and nights, he was in hell, and he was doing what he was supposed to do. And then, there are those, though, that are unrighteous, and we know some of them. We know some people like that.
Okay.
And they are absolutely unrighteous, and they don't have any good in them.
Mm-hmm.
If there was any good in them, it left a long time ago. And some of these people, I'm telling you, they are that way from birth.
Yeah, I believe that.
Wasting your breath on them, okay? Some people, I will pray for them, and I will see black when I pray. I mean, like a black veil, and I know that don't waste your breath.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to tell everybody to do that. That's something that I think that's unique to certain people that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to sit there and waste my breath on someone that I feel like the Holy Spirit is telling you, hey, this is an act of just, and in some religion is that way too. It's a lot of just performing tasks that have no meaning. It's just symbolic symbolism, whatever. And that doesn't do anything. It's just going through the motions, and you're paying lip service to God and to your belief, and there's nothing to be gained by just So up, down, stand, sit, kneel, sit, pray. That's not doing anything.
Do you think, this may be kind of a weird random question, but do you think that people who are like born bad, like their soul was already, destined to be bad? Like, I know you said there's no help for them, but like when they came here, knowing they're going to be bad. Am I making sense what I'm asking?
Yeah. I think if you were to ask LA that question, he would say, well, everyone has, I don't know what he would say exactly, but I don't have the same exact belief as him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't believe that everything is just set a certain way. I think we'll see.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there are those that are born beyond redemption. I call them like recirculated troops.
Yeah.
Like in war. Okay, for example, you will fight some enemies, you take them in as prisoners, but you can't hold them because you can't feed them unless you want to shoot them, and that's not correct. Especially now, since in World War II, the Geneva Convention was created. But you don't, so you have to release them.
Yeah.
So you disarm them and you take away their munitions and whatever, but you release them. Eventually, you'll see them again. They're going to find their respective units, unless they've been destroyed, If they haven't been decimated or obliterated, or they'll be thrown into circulation with another unit,
Yeah.
you know, or they'll be attached to another fire squad, and then they'll come back, and
Mm-hmm.
you will fight those same men again, and you'll fight them again and again and again. That's what these beings are. And some of them are perfectly possessed. They're actually demons, and some of them are obsessed on by demonic forces, and you will face them again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And their job is to hound you to dust. That is their job. They may not even know it. They're just a wind-up toy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they literally don't know why they do what they do.
Right.
They don't know how it works. They don't know the wheel. They don't understand why they're on it. They don't care. Some of them even believe in God and Christ. And but they only believe in God and Christ as far as like what it's gonna where it's gonna take them. It's a
Right.
vessel, you know.
Right.
I need to get to heaven. Can you give me a ride? Okay, this is how I get to heaven. I don't want to go to hell. I need to attach myself to something that will keep me from divine punishment.
Right.
And because I said some words that I believe in Christ, whatever, now I have free reign to do any dastardly deed I want, and then I'll go and throw myself on God's mercy, and I'm all good. I'll go to sleep, sleep sound as a baby, and I'm fine. That's not how it works. That is not correct. That's not what this is. And so I tell people these people, and Nelly just said, dark soul drones. Good. That's a very good analogy. That's what they are. So they return, they get thrown back into circulation, and they do what they do. But plus, you know, you're born with an amnesia, right?
Right.
And these people have probably been to torment, and they were probably told, you know, hey, you're going to go here. You're not going to remember it, but if you want to go back, you're not going to. There's no chance for you. You're just going to live your life there. You'll die, and you'll come back to us. But we're going to put you back in circulation, you know. And I think they can do that.
Yeah.
I really do. And whether you call them aliens or demons or angels or whatever you want to call them, the worker drones or whatever these what they call these machine elves, whatever. There are people who've had out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and they'll run into these elf-like beings, and they'll ask them questions about their life. They'll be like, how was it? And you're like, what do you mean, how was it? I mean, were you behind it? Like, you know, and they'll be like, yeah, we were watching you. Yeah. Now, is that part of a deception? Possibly. Or is that what is going on in this reality? That doesn't preclude that God exists or that Jesus is there. And what LA said about how, you know, when Jesus comes down, there's not going to be this great battle. That's not what's going to happen. He's right about that. Because Jesus is what holds us all together. It's like molecules, right? This is an agreed upon illusion, folks. So all he has to do is pull the little bit of spark of God that's in you, that essence, and call it back. And you're gone. You're dead. You're dead. Your body just falls and turns to a mush. That's all it is. It's just a suit. And then you're being pulled back, you know, and then you're being sent to where you need to go. And that is judgment. And so there's no one that's going to escape judgment. This ridiculousness where people say, well, I'm not going to have to face all that because I'm going to be gone. No, you're not. And if you're here for a reason. There's a system in place that everybody seems to want to circumvent. No, nobody's circumventing anything. That is not going to happen. It even says that the sea will give up their dead, right? Now, we know as ghost hunters, I'm not like you as a ghost hunter. I'm a little bit more amateurish than you are. But when it comes to ghost hunting, I know that oceanic seagoing spirits are very powerful. Very powerful because that spirit is in the sea.
Yep.
There is an energy and an essence that is in
and
that
look
sea.
What kind of energy water is.
It is a very potent conductor. And so the sea giving up its dead, that there's a reason why we wrote that song. I say I thought of the idea, but Nelly wrote it.
Nelly, yeah.
The Flying Dutchman. You know, it says the Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. And now I'm condemned to roam the seven seas for all eternity. The whole concept of being cursed at sea is the water doesn't let you cross.
Yeah.
You're there. And one of the entrances to hell, and I'm telling you this is true, kind of like what LA was talking about, Tartarus or Hades,
Right.
or whatever. Those are all different names of they're different places. They're different compartments, as he said.
Right.
You know, when you look at like this entrance to hell, one of them is in the Atlantic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a book. It's called like, and Anthony, you might be able to help me with this. I was reading the darn thing the other day. I can't remember the name of it. It was called like The Sorcerer and the Sea, or what's it called? It's on Amazon. You can buy it. This guy was from Africa, but his father was into black magic, dark magic. And so this black magic practitioner, you know, he took his son underground, under the ocean.
Wow.
And he met different entities. And one of the ones that he met was Mammon. And Mammon is actually the god of money, wealth, you know. And he's a very deviant, evil being, and he creates wealth. He is one of the most powerful beings on this planet right now because he is in control of finance. Now, there's 6 families that are in control of war, pharmaceuticals, education. Does that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they each have their own. One is in charge of the media, right? And they each do their own whatever. Now, if you go back and you look up the Krupps, they were selling weapons to every side. You know, they're the family that corresponds with war. There's one for education, one for international finance, which is the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. They have their hands in all the pharmaceuticals. In the Redstones, they're in charge of the media. You know, and so these 6 families, they literally have, and so the money end of it, the Rothschilds, it's called the Red Shield, right? When this guy meets Mammon, he immediately knows who he is because of the symbols. Like, this dude is like, hey, I am their god, basically. And so, you know, and I've read many cases where people have interacted with these high-ranking archons. Mammon is not a demon. He's a fallen angel. He's one of the rebellious. He's free. He's roaming around. He's hanging out with the devil, literally. That's what he does, you know. And then there are others that are in charge of like education. That's the brainwashing, the propaganda, whatever. The Joseph Goebbels type brainwashing. Stalin, him and Hitler, they had the propaganda down to a science. Well, who gave it to them? You know, these are evil entities that do this.
Yeah.
They have this network that they use. But don't think for a second that if one of them could knock off their leader, they wouldn't do it, because that is ultimately their Achilles heel. Because they don't believe, like LA said, that Jesus binds it all together. They believe that they can circumvent that. They literally, somebody asked me what a demon is. I said, you know what a demon is? Same thing as a fallen angel. They are a being that's stubborn. Okay, they're stiff-necked, and they believe that they can turn the clock backwards. Right? And they believe that they can stand in the middle of the river and make it flow the other way. Even with the power of manipulating the matrix, they can't do that without God allowing it. So it's like you're still stuck in the playpen. God's allowing you this, and this, people ask this question all the time too. I say the reason that this is happening is because there are those who are born within the realm of redemption that need to come to God. And he's giving you free will to come to him, right? So it's up to you. It's your choice to do that. And now if you don't do that, then more's the pity. Right. And then, but along the way, you're going to run into these people who are, they're actually wholly ignorant. WHO, no, not HOL, but W, they're wholly ignorant, completely and 100% ignorant of where they came from and what their mission is. They just know that they can't resist doing bad, right? Because they can't. It doesn't matter. They can pray all day long. They will not be redeemed. I promise you, they will not be redeemed. And there is nothing you or anybody else can do about it. Even if the demons that they answer to wanted to, they couldn't do it. These people have chosen that path long ago. And every subsequent life, they just continue to be evil. And there's nothing that anyone's going to do about it, because that is their lot.
What they're
And
destined
so,
for.
yep, they're destined. And so, and in the end, hell, it says the lake of will be thrown into the lake of fire. So hell itself. So you have this weird box within a box thing.
Mhm.
I'll explain that. Whenever you have like these compartments, they're all a part of hell. Tartarus, Hades, they'll all be tossed into hell, but then ultimately hell will be wrapped up and thrown into the lake of fire. Now, what that could mean is at some point the sun, this is kind of scientific here, is going to supernova.
Right.
Are you still going to be playing around on this field? Because you will be scorched by that. I don't care if you're a soul or not. The physical, they say, well, the physical won't hurt you, and that's not true. Fire is an element,
Mhm.
right? And spirits, we know, do react to fire.
Yeah.
They really do. They react to fire. They react to cold and other things. There's things that they do react to because those are elements, right?
Yep.
And so if you're on this planet and you're still, on it when that day comes, you're going, hell will be devoured, hell, which is the core of the earth, very possibly, it's a theory I have, will be consumed by the sun going nova,
Mhm.
because the sun will eventually not exist anymore. And
Yep.
that's not anti-biblical either. That's actually, to me, I believe that is what's going to happen. I
Right.
believe that will happen, and so that if you are still here, you're being consumed. Now, people don't understand what that means. It's a long, long time. Now, imagine you're tormented and being burned all that time, and then eventually God says, "Okay," and He allows that to happen, and then your soul eventually dies the second death, and you cease to be. It's almost a mercy at that point.
Yeah.
God has said enough is enough. Me personally, I don't understand how it works completely, but I would be so merciful. My worst enemy, if he was burning in hell, I would
Mhm.
still put my hand out and burn my hand to pull him out, because that's who I am.
Right.
I forgive them, and if God says, do you want this person to continue to burn or whatever, I don't care what their sin is against me. I'm not that important.
Mhm.
I would say to God, it's your judgment, because God says we're going to judge the angels, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I am in any position to judge anyone or anything.
Right.
That's me personally. Those that claim that they're all clamoring for that and they want to do that and they're all excited about it,
Yeah.
that says a lot about your character, of who you are.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm, I don't judge either. Same way. Same thing. I don't know. There's just so much to it. And, um, as far as like the demonic, they're everywhere,
Mhm.
every aspect of our life, I mean, you think, every little thing. I just, even like I feel a narcissist, somebody who's a narcissist, I feel
Mhm.
like, that's a demonic something going on there, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. They're attached. There's an attachment.
Right.
And
Yep.
they're like Howdy Doody, wooden puppet, but they're
Mhm.
being puppeteered by that
Exactly.
darkness.
They're being
And it
led.
is. Mhm.
Yep. People who I feel like, like are like kleptomaniacs, different addictions, be it, stealing or sex or gambling, whatever, that's another type of demon. Demonic.
Different tiers too. I mean,
Right.
like sometimes, and I know you've probably come across this. I don't know if you have. It's a question I want to ask. If you or Brandy or anybody has ever come across this, where you are facing something that's an archon, not just a demon. Have you ever had to deal with that?
The only thing that I could say that, I think it was a demon. I'm pretty sure it was a demon. It was a demonic case we were doing, and this particular person like knew things about me, not just me, but everybody that was there that they shouldn't have known. So is that a demon or is that
And so
everything
this thing knew
knew
things
things
about.
about all of us that
Mhm.
we didn't even know amongst each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Malachi Martin, the late Malachi Martin was a Catholic he was a demonologist. And he believed, that these entities, they, he would cast them out as an exorcist too. And he said that one time he was on a mission, and he was working for the church,
Right.
and they were trying to cast out a demon, and there was a priest there,
Mhm.
and he had his anus ripped open by this demon.
Oh, wow.
And so I wondered about that, and I said, well, I didn't want to say anything, but I know that, sometimes your own sin is visited upon you.
That's right.
And so I wondered about that, because there's all this stuff going on with,
Yeah.
them doing things to children.
Mhm.
And Martin didn't go into details, but it kind of got the impression that maybe that's what was happening there. That demon knew what he had done.
What he had done. Yep.
And he was like, okay,
Mhm.
and then there's these demons that tell people to do and say the most outlandish, sick,
That's right.
twisted things you could possibly think of. And they say, oh, well, they act like animals. And I say this, don't insult animals, because they do things that aren't fit for animals.
Animals appear.
Yeah, that's not correct. Don't call them animals, because you're degrading animals. These people are like their masters, the fallen, who defiled all of nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they love to spread gossip and rumors and create destruction. And I've said this before, and I'm not attacking people who are of whatever persuasion or whatever, but we were talking the other day about Sodom and Gomorrah and about the destruction of those particular cities. And somebody posed a question to me, and they said, well, if you don't believe that is the one true God that did that, whatever. I said, whether or not that is God, whether or not it is who created us or not, there is a sense of morality there, because they destroyed it, whether or not I still agree with that decision. And they said, well, you're being anti-gay. They were telling me that. And I said, yeah, there was a lot of things going on in those cities. Now, I personally, I don't agree with people's decisions to do whatever, but I don't agree with a lot of things that people do. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go run out and I'm going to get a bullhorn and go, you're going to hell. That's what people do.
Right.
And that's not my job.
Right.
My job is to tell you, yeah, okay, as a Christian, I'll tell you the gospel, and I'll tell you that you shouldn't do that, because it says that you're not supposed to do that. But I'm not going to judge the people. But if the divine judgment happens to someone or something, there's reasons why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's legality there, and people, they don't want to accept that.
Yeah.
They go too far one way or the other. They're like, well, it says that Jesus says he's a true and loving God, and so he can't be the same guy that was, angry and whatever and vindictive and jealous and all these other things. And even if that's true, do you think that God doesn't have a limit to his patience? Like with the sickness that people are, imposing on the world? I mean, it's ridiculous. At some point, we're going to take it too far. And I agree with what my guest said earlier. I believe that we have. I think AI is probably the death knell. That's the final straw, because they can make a video of you and I talking and us saying the most horrible things you could think of, and there's nothing you can do, because they can make you look like you're saying it.
Yep. Look and sound.
And it's getting better and better.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and watch your show with him tonight. I missed probably the first half hour of it
because of work. You had work.
Kid stuff.
Yeah.
I got a kid that's in color guard, so I had to drop her off, and yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and so anyway, Krista, if you need to run, you can. I mean, you don't have to hang out.
Actually, I'm going to do Texas show here in just a little bit. I told him I'd hop on there for a bit.
Yeah, so I'll let you run.
Okay.
But thanks for coming on and stopping in.
It was fun visiting, and again, doors always open for blondes for you.
Yeah, who do you got coming on Thursday?
We have a Squatch detective, Steve Coles.
I don't know who that is.
Hop on, meet them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to do some Rumble.
Okay.
So
Okay.
with try not to, I'll try to be as on my best behavior, but Rumble is very tempting to say things.
I hear you.
Like I
Yep.
said, I mean, God has a certain level of patience, and we all do.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
get to a certain point, and you're just like, dude.
It can only take so much, and we're human.
Okay, I'll let you run.
All right. See ya.
All right, bye. So that's Krista from Blondes and Booze, and always good friends of ours here at Paranormal Roundtable. We have several friends. Tex, he does a show about true crime today. BMR, or Boomer as I call him. And then you have, there's a bunch of people. Matt Imsh, I like him. I like Rivas, Codegas. Here it is right here. There it is. Betsy, what do you think Dogman is? He's asking somebody that question. What do you think it is, Betsy? So you have all these different people who have shows and whatever, and there's only so many that I associate with. Why is that? Here's another one. Spiritual Cryptid Cat. That's Abe Seas. I associate with him. Because there's only so many people that I trust. There's so many people that I am actually willing to associate with. Because I know that those people got my back. And as far as I can tell, they're morally sound. Then you have the other people out there who are sick and twisted and go and get on Reddit and make stuff up and say sick, twisted things because they got nothing better to do. Oh, it's so funny to me. Some of the things that they come up with it's so vile. The things they come up with. Sometimes whenever I'm getting a story from somebody, I think, man, is this person, if they thought this up in their mind, they are really twisted. You know what I mean? Like, I had a guy who told me a story from being in Southern California. And when he told me this, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was like, but then I went back and I thought about it. And I remember a guy that used to work with us. And he had told us, it was Daryl. And Daryl had told us an amazing story about escaping from this cult. And he had literally, this was probably 20 years ago when he told us the story, and it was several years before that. Daryl's probably about 8 years. I think he's 7 to 8 years older than me. Because I remember being like 22 or something like that. And he was almost 30. He was like 29, 30, something like that. I remember when he celebrated his 30th birthday, I might have been 23. That's what I'm saying. It was something like that. So whenever he told us this story, it was several years before that. So this must have been in the 90s. But he ran into one of these deviants, and we were talking about why Austin has so many homeless people. And he says they come from California. And why are there homeless people that are doing these weird things, committing cannibalism and blah, blah, blah. And he said they come from Southern California. And now, if you listen to Tony Merkel, one of his shows, the guy was talking about nearly being killed by these lunatics. That there was a show about that. It was like an episode he did about that. I don't remember. I didn't get to finish the whole show. It's unfortunate I have time. So I got to pick and choose my time. And when I have time, I have to do research and I have to read people's encounters and talk to them or correspond, whatever. And so I didn't get to finish it, but there was another guy who was talking on our show, James Bartley. He's been on a couple times, and a bunch of crazy, weird stuff that went on in Southern California. And you talk to my wife. She says the same thing. And so then this guy, he tells us that there is literally like cannibalistic Satanists running around in the high desert in California and Nevada, and that they are lunatics, and some of them are inbred, and that what they do, they catch people and they initiate them into their cult. And if they don't think that you're of any use, then they'll kill and eat you. Now, this guy, Daryl, he swore up and down. He told me, my brother, Scorpion, and several other people, there was a bunch of us there that night. We were all hanging out at my friend Arash's bar. And I believe it was Fraser's birthday. It was one of my friends from Jamaica. I think it was his birthday. But this guy was there, and he was telling us that he ran into one of these people, and he remembers that the guy had the tattoo, like an old California bear, the bear on the flag on his left arm, on his shoulder or whatever, back, whatever, like his, and he was wearing a tank top. And he recognized this guy. And he was doing, this guy that was telling us, he goes, I was doing security of this old theater that was shut down. And it was over there by Barton Creek Mall. And he ran into this individual. And this guy was from California, and he says he recognized him as one of the people that had held him hostage. And he had witnessed this guy and his friends. He knows they killed this individual, but he could not say exactly, when the guy had passed away. He was already dead. He was hanging up on this, like, I don't know what you would call it. Like, it's like a wooden, like the bones of a teepee. It was kind of built like a pyramid, and they had the guy laid out on it, and they began cutting him up like he was beef. And then he says, I see this guy, and I'll never forget. I know it was him. That same voice. He had the methed out mouth with missing teeth. And he said he was one of them. And these people were complete deviants. One of the leaders was a guy, but he was attracted to him. So he went over and tried to get him to sneak out into the desert with him, and he goes, but he had some women there that I guess were his wives or whatever. So he had to try to be sneaky or whatever the hell he was doing. He was a deviant. And he used that to get away from these people. So somebody gives me a story not too long ago about the cannibals here, and they said they come from Southern California. And I'm not trying to bag on California, and I'm not saying that if you're from California, you're automatically a weird, deviant-minded person who does sick things. But that country, that state has been worked on really hard by these evil people at the behest of their masters who dwell in the abyss. And so when you look at what they're vomiting up out there, they're throwing it up on all these other states. Arizona is getting all this influx of these weirdos, and it's not just the yuppie people who sell their house for $5 million and then come here and set up shop and tell you that they don't like your barbecue smoke or the fact that you own a gun or whatever, and they want you to drive a Prius or a Tesla. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the degenerates and the ingrates that come along with that. Because it stands to reason that these idiots have been living off of them. The parasites have been living off of these dumb shits. So when they come here to infect us with their leftist ideology, the parasites are going to come with them because they are like, hey, there's a mass migration going to the east because it's overcrowded and it stinks like shit over here, and we've destroyed all the major cities, so let's all go there and do the same thing. So if you were one of these parasitic human ticks with your sick proclivities, you're going to go where the stupid, retard, sick people are going because you live off of them. Oh, let's go to Austin because that's where all the libtard, retard, reject, whatever sickos that any truth that is spoken, it's treated like vomit. Jordan Peterson, if you listen to this guy, right? Jordan Peterson will say something, and the left will go absolutely, they just go cuckoo bananas. They will go absolutely insane on this dude. If he says, when you take a dump, you should wipe your butt. No, I don't think so. Toilet paper is bad for the environment. It kills trees. They'll find some reason to jump on this guy. If you tell them, maybe you shouldn't be a cannibal, they'll tell you, there's too many people, and when someone dies, we should eat them to save the earth. The disconnect is beyond anything that I could possibly imagine. If Jordan Peterson said, we have 2 eyes. You don't need 2 eyes. You're taking up too much space. Your carbon footprint is off the chain. Take one out and eat it. That's a meal right there. Okay. And then you can use the other eye to do what you got to do. You're driving a Prius anyway. You shouldn't go beyond 35 miles. They're insane. They literally are insane. They'll find any literal thing. If you, I have dandruff. Oh, you know what? That's a good thing. You can put that and eat it, and you recycle. I have a scab. Eat it. There is some sort of sick insanity going on in their brains. It's got to be some sort of like parasite that's just floating around up there, making their brain into Swiss cheese, like Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. But the cannibal Satanists, they know to come here when these sissies come here, and they are sissies. When they come here, because the guns give them PTSD or whatever the shit it is, they come here, they know that they got to follow them to, they're like, yeah, let's go over there because this is where these clowns are going to be living, and they'll give us handouts, and they'll turn the city into a dumpster fire, which they're doing. And then we can sit around and shake our cups and aggressively demand you to give us money, because some of them do that. Some of them they're just down on their luck. And some of them, though, are very militant. Yeah. Really, they are. I mean, they threw a spear at us at one of our sites. I mean, this is the kind of people that we're dealing with. You have no idea just the level, the absolute level of insanity that these people are capable of. And I don't think that anybody is truly prepared for what's coming down. All right. So give me 1 second. I'll be right back, and I'll tell you an encounter. Just 1 second, folks. Okay. So, anyways, what I was saying, though, that's a little bit of a rant. That's for Rumble. We're gonna save it, but come Thursday, and I'll tell you some things. And to answer someone's question, they said, "Why is this?" Was somebody that asked a question, and I thought maybe this was important. Maybe I should tell you. This is economics. Thank you. They said, "Is it a good thing for them to cut the interest rates?" Yes and no. And I argued with somebody about this the other day, and then I was talking to my friend at the gym, and I was explaining to him why it was not necessarily a good thing, because we have runaway inflation going on. I said, well, we're getting inflation under control. Bull crap. That is an untruthitude, Your Honor. I'll tell you why. Because every 3 months they're printing another $1 trillion to $3 trillion, whatever dollars it is, whatever they're up to now. It's unbelievable. And so when you look at what they're doing, and then Elizabeth Warren goes and says, well, we need to cut the interest rates. Yeah. It'll stimulate economic growth. You know, if you do that, because then people aren't inclined to save their money, they'll go spend it, because what good does it do to put it in the bank when the interest isn't going to pay anything? You know, all these other silly theories they have, like, you know, I will get really pissed off when it comes to economics, because people do not understand, and they do not grasp, and they don't understand that we are sitting here in a casino playing with borrowed money. They don't grasp it. So I'm only telling you this. Then I need a new house fund. Yes, I actually don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm confident that God will provide. I'm swatting at a gnat that has been sent here by Hades to afflict me. I'm joking, but anyway, you see what I'm saying here, and I'm only telling you this because I care about you. You, my paratroopers, my listeners, my base, the people that I love, the people that I care about, those that I'm close to. I want you to be protected. I want you to be safe. You know what I mean? I give a damn. Most people aren't going to sit up here on a show like this and risk the audience by talking about interest rates, things like that. And I could get into a whole show about them. I'm not going to. But you really need to understand how it works. Like Marzulli said earlier, you need to educate yourself. Knowledge is the most important thing we have. Forewarned is, forearmed. I mean, you basically are armed because you already know. If you know the enemy and you know what angle they're coming from, you have a pretty good chance of averting crisis. Now, there are some enemies that are tough. Like, some people, they'll tell you exactly what they're going to do to you, and then they'll do it. And you can't do a damn thing about it. You'll just be sitting there with that look on your face like, ugh. You ain't going to do nothing. You can't, because you can't. Nothing you can do. It's like a running back in the NFL, like Earl Campbell. I'm going to run straight up the middle. I'm going to run you over, and he'll do it. And then you can't do anything about it. Sit there and look stupid. Get your face stepped on. But for the most part, you can stop a lot of things if you are forewarned. Now it's up to you to listen. So that's the whole, and D-Truth there. It says, well, yeah, there you go. But do you think they will? Do you think that'll ever happen? Hell no. Yep. There you go, Missy. A lot of it is willful ignorance. No, it's all willful ignorance. It's 99.9% willful ignorance. People are completely brainwashed. They go to school, and the more they go to school, the more they get the retardation. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and bash college. I went to college, and I didn't finish. I dropped out and became successful. Stupid people keep going, and you know what they do? They're 60, and they're just now paying off their student loans. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait, you don't got to pay those off. Let everyone else deal with it. Ha, ha, ha. See, now it's worth it to go to college. See how that works? Let's destroy the economy and get everybody laid off, and then when they when they come back to work, then we'll call it record job growth. Yeah, and then the dumbasses roll out the numbers and go, "It's in the computer, in the computer thing, in the computer." These people couldn't tell you one single thing about how the economy works. They couldn't tell you one single thing about science, real science. They couldn't tell you one single thing about math. You know how many people, when Terrence Howard was talking about Euclidean math, they were probably like, eucalyptic what? They had no idea what he was talking about. Who is Euclid? They have no clue. He was a mathematician. He was considered to be one of the fathers of math. It's not important right now, but the point is, or Cartesian, which is Descartes, they have no clue. One guy sent me this big, long email, and he says, "You make me sick. I hate you with every fiber of my being." And I'm thinking to myself, why are you watching me, dude? His name was Rob. So Rob sends me this message, and he says, "I hate you with every fiber of my being. I watch you, I despise you, and I want to throw up." He's like, "You are worse than any other of these people. You're more dangerous." He says, "You're Alex Jones, Jerry Jones." He's the one that coined that, Jerry Jones, Jim Jones, whatever. That's why I always joke. And I say that. He says, "You were all these people rolled into one. You're worse than Trump." I said, "You're worse than all these people. You're horrible." He's
There you
all right, guys. To those of you who are still with us, so I'm sitting here in the dark. The power went out while we were talking. So I guess, but we figured out a way to get back in to the studio. Anthony, can you close that? So I'm just going to sit here and finish up the stream like I was doing before they tried to shut me down. I guess when you say things that are too true, people get upset. Who would have thought? But the power is out, and we pay the bills, so there's no reason for it to be out. It's kind of the lights have flickered back and off and on a couple times. The people across from us here that are still here, there's people who were here until like 10, 11 o'clock. They all came out of their offices and were like, "What the hell's going on?" And I'm like, "Hey, I think I'm the reason that they shut the power down." Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm just joking. Who knows? Yeah, there you go. Open the window. It's still daylight until 10 o'clock at night. Hotter than the surface of the sun here in Texas. But yeah, and it's not even July yet. Oh, it must be that delicious global warming that they keep talking about. That's probably why you need to go get you one of them there fancy electric cars. But anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that we're still here, we're still alive. And it says, "Is it just your building?" Yes, it is our building. But the whole building when the power went out. So it would have been really weird if they just shut down the power to our particular unit, but they so that's only happened one time here in the 3 years we've been here. That the building power went out like that. We've had other things happen, you know. So what I was about to get off my soapbox and actually tell you a story, and it was an angelic one. I thought that was quite interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it since we're still here, and hope you guys can. Y'all hear me good? Can you hear me? Mm. So yes, okay, y'all can hear me. So just making sure. There's some people who will actually go to any lengths to shut me down. This guy had written me a letter saying, "You're worse than any of these people. You're the worst thing since Hitler and Stalin and blah, blah, blah," everything he could think of. And I asked him one simple thing. I responded, I said, why do you watch? And he says, "I'm keeping tabs on people like you so that I can report you to the authorities so that they know what kind of a menace you are." Now, there are other people in this field that have called me a menace too, because they are allergic to the truth. Literally, it's like throwing holy water on a vampire. They just cannot stand it. Now, whether or not holy water really does work, that's up for conjecture. But I mean, you can debate it. What's wrong with these people? What's wrong with their brains? Why are they the way they are? There's some kind of parasite that these people have. I'm not joking. And it's a physical and a spiritual thing, and it infects their brains. They literally have a derangement syndrome. Like I was telling our guest earlier, they don't know why they hate me. They can't even tell you why they hate you. They just hate you. This guy is one of those who's very fervent about it. But yet you realize, like, these people watch every single move you make so they can pick it apart. They can figure out a way to attack you. And a lot of them cannot even tell you. There was one guy, I'm not going to say his name, recently. He was taken to task by his own friend who was trying to be impartial, I guess. And he kept asking him, "What is your," and the guy's like, "Oh, he's drama farming." Dude, drama hurts my channel. If we bring it here and we talk about it, people get turned off and they don't like it. If you're a person, and there's a guy who's got a channel, I'm not going to say his name either, but he depends on the drama so that he can get views. So you don't feed it. That's what he has to do to get drama. He has to get views. He creates drama. I don't do that. I don't need that. I don't want that. That does not help me because we have something here that works. We do very well as long as we stay away from the drama. You see, there's no drama farming because, and I just found out what that meant about 3 months ago. But that is something you don't want to do here at PRT because we do other things very well. So for us to do that would be to shoot ourselves in the foot. So anyways, I got a story that came from a guy, and this dude, he lived in Georgia, and he told me a pretty fascinating story. When he was really sick, he had the vid, about 3 years ago, and he says he nearly died. He was very, very ill, and he said that he didn't know that he was going to recover. I mean, it was bad. He went to the hospital, and he had lost another family member to it, and it really scared him. His first cousin passed away, and he said that he was elderly though. His cousin was about 10 years older than him, and he was in bad health. And this guy was 60. He told me this. He says, I'm 60 years old, and I end up going into the hospital. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And it's a very scary thing to have that. And he says, I was laying there, and he goes, and I quit breathing. And I realized, like they said, my oxygen was like 80 or so. It was like ridiculously low. I was not doing well at all. And he goes, and I began to hallucinate, as I thought I was. And he said that he had to come to terms where he started praying, because I was never really very religious. I was never really a good Christian. He goes, I was Episcopalian, but I didn't really practice. That was what my dad was. He goes, my mother was like, and she became non-denominational and whatever. She was a Baptist at one point, and he said, I was never really into religion. It was pushed on me and I rejected it. He goes, but I had said the salvation prayer and I did believe in Christ. And he's like, and as I was starting to fade, I saw this black winged thing that looked like a shadow that kept running up and down the hallway. And I kept thinking I was having a fever dream. He said, then eventually it came into my hospital room, and it began to do this sort of little weird chanting thing. And it was like sort of spinning around like a spiral. And he said that it was trying to grab him and pull him down off of the bed. But as it did, it was pulling him down. He goes, I realized it was a spiritual thing, not a physical thing. Because I looked back and I'd see my body, and I kept thinking, I need to get back into that body. I don't want to be out of my body. And this thing was dragging me. He goes, and I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was on fire, but I was also drowning at the same time. And I've heard this before. And I'm listening to this story, and the guy's like, and he actually didn't tell me this. It was like a clip he put on Messenger or whatever. And so he tells me this. And he says, I was literally, I felt like I was drowning and I was burning at the same time. And this thing was trying to drag me to wherever, and he goes, and I began to scream at the top of my lungs. The minute I got back into my body for just a split second, I was like going in and out of my body. I would sit up and then I'd go back out, and my daughter was freaking out. She was like, my dad is, he was telling the nurses, the orderlies, everybody, my dad's dying, and they did a code or whatever, and they came in there. And so they were giving him all kinds of crap, help him breathe, And he said, dude, I was dying. And he goes, and I began screaming, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the nurses were like, oh my gosh, he's freaking out, he's hallucinating. And he goes, and this thing was standing at the foot of my bed. He goes, and I thought this was really, really cool to have this vision like this. It would be amazing to have this vision. But he said that he saw this angel, what looked like something, pierce the top of the wall in the room, coming down at an angle. And he said it looked like a yellowish, glowing golden sword that had this light that came off of it. And it is the first thing that came through that wall. And he said, I knew immediately it was an angel of the Lord. And this thing thrust that sword through the back of that being's spine and out of his chest. And all of this light began to eat up the darkness of that being. And he sort of just dissipated into these little fractals, And so, well, that's the way he described them. He didn't use the word fractal, but so he said that they were like these little pieces, that were flying off of him. And he said that this angel came through and just was standing in place of where that being was. And he told him, literally, he told this guy, he said, go and tell. That's all he said. And then it was gone. It was like vibration, and then they stabilized him. And he was in the middle of being very, very ill. And the next thing you know, the next day he felt better. The fever, everything was broken. The day after that, he was up and moving around. And then the day after that, he was out of the hospital, out of the woods. You know, they had moved him from the ICU, you know, like the next day. It was like a miracle. He said, dude, he's breathing fine. He's stable. And he says, I haven't been sick since. And he's like, it was crazy. He goes, what I saw, he goes, and I've never seen anything like it before or since. He's like, but I believe that it was divine intervention. What do you think? And so I messaged him back and I said, I believe it. I believe that you were spared. And he says, what do I do now? And I said, well, Jesus says, go and sin no more. He goes, how do I do that? I said, it's an impossible task, but you have to try. See, because a lot of what's happening right now in this world and what's happening in our society is that we are infected with a sickness. There is an evil, there is a darkness that is enveloping us. And we have to cling to Christ like driftwood in the ocean. You have to be strong in the faith and believe. And do more than just pay lip service. You have to love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's really hard, especially when you have neighbors that are really mean and nasty and do mean and nasty things. You still have to love them, you know? Even the people who have been messing with us. Somebody broke into our car in our front of our house. They opened the doors. There was only one vehicle that had an unlocked door. They found it. And I guess we interrupted them when we returned from patrol because they left the door open. So these people, they do these things. They harass us. They stalk us. They do every vile thing that you could think of. They vandalize. They destroy. You have to forgive them, and you have to continue. You have to continue. It's hard. And that's something that LA was talking about earlier. It's something that a lot of my colleagues have talked about, is the hate that you get. Because when you're on the right path and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you have to deal with a copious amount of jealous people who are hating on you, and they don't even know why they hate you themselves. They have no idea. But there are people who are born beyond redemption. Like I said, I really believe that. And I think that what we need to do as a community, as a people, as a group, as a whole, is come together, stand strong, help each other out. Don't be divided. Don't let the enemy divide us. Don't let them stop us. Like right now, my phone is at 34%, so I got a little time. The electricity, the power went out here. What are the odds? I'm about to tell a story, an angelic story, right? And I'm talking about these weirdos who constantly attack people like us, and the power goes out to stop me. So you just have to reroute and do this, right? You don't let them win. No matter what you do, you stand firm. You don't let them win. You do not let them stop you. You don't let them throw you off. You continue on your path. You do what you have to do. You stay strong and fear not. Don't be afraid. That's the hardest thing, I think, for my enemies is that, they thought, well, we're all going to band together and he's going to be afraid of us and we're going to run him out. They don't expect you to fight the way you fight, and they don't expect you to be shielded, right? Because you're not supposed to have that ability. You're supposed to be afraid. You're supposed to live in fear of the enemy. And they do the fake Christian thing, They do the whole, oh no, I'm God's emissary. I'm the guy that stands in the gap. I'm his mouthpiece. God's going to pass judgment on you, Josh Turner, blah, blah, blah. I'm the good guy. If you were the good guy, you wouldn't have brought war to me, would you? If you were the good guy, you wouldn't have done those things. You would have tried everything you could to avoid it, but you didn't. You saw an opportunity and you took it, and you couldn't even tell anybody why you did it. See, that's the problem, isn't it? So here at PRT, we're going to keep pushing, keep going. We're going to keep doing what we do. And yeah, when the devil has you on the ropes and you feel like you're going to die, you can cry out to Christ, or you can whimper and pass on like nothing. It's up to you. You can be strong and you can fight it and you can resist and you can live. The guy that told me that story, his name is Joseph. When he said, Joseph told me, he's there, I've never doubted myself since that day. He goes, and I didn't think that I'd be in my early 60s and tell you this story. And he goes, I thought I was going to die. And that was it. That was the end of it, right? It's over, game over. And he's like, and it was just as simple as getting myself right with Christ. And once again, he cries out, and that saves him. So somebody asked me the question, they said, why is it that you get so many stories that someone tells you that they're saved by Christ? I said, because they know that that's who I am. You're going to go to the guy that's going to tell the story, not to somebody who's going to go, yeah, I don't really like that supernatural aspect of it. We're going to leave that off and not talk about it. So they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you the story because they know you're going to listen and you're going to retell it and you're going to do it justice. So that's who we are. So guys, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to run. Thank you for tuning in to Paranormal Roundtable. This after show, whatever, it was just kind of an impromptu thing. I thought that there were some things that needed to be talked about. But tomorrow night, tune in. We have a couple of really powerful stories that are going to be on. It's an hour-long episode, and everybody in the podcast world is going to be glad that we're back. Or there's some that are not going to be glad, but they've been clamoring. So here it is. It'll be here tomorrow night, 7:00 p.m. I'll see you then. And in the meantime, y'all love one another, love God, take care of yourselves. Good night.